Over the past months, Nigeria have watched fuel prices climb up higher and higher. For many, it's not just about what you pay at the pump. It is about what it means for transport fees, food prices, and the cost of simply getting through the day. At the same time, new and expanding tax measures are beginning to bite. From small business owners to salaried workers, there's a growing sense that more is being taken while less is coming back. So, what does this double pressure what does this double pressure, rising in fuel cost and increasing taxes, really mean for households, businesses, and the broader economy? Is this a necessary path to long-term stability or an ordinary Nigerian being stretched too thin? Okay, that's what we'll be talking about this morning. I'm sure you saw the profile of our guest not quite long. We have a guest to help us dissect the discussion on fill up taxes of the squeeze on Nigeria's economy. In the studio with us, we have a chartered accountant, policy and public affairs analyst, Olusesan Samuel Okunade. Good morning.
Good morning, Kenny. Good morning, Fumi, and good morning to our viewers. Should I say happy new year? No, okay, I've been here this and it's always a great time to be with you on the show.
Okay. Honestly, I want to talk. I don't want to talk. I don't want to speak too much grammar today because it's been so much of back and forth. Most especially within the ordinary citizen out there about the fuel prices, about the taxation and every other thing. The layman will say is that no light, petrol is 1,300. Tax, they say they are taxing us. What they see is their account, they make a transaction, the stamp duty and everything. As a chartered accountant, and I know you are a chartered tax professional also, please explain to the average Nigerian there in common language, in common language.
That's very important.
It's very, very important. The reason, first of all, for the fuel price hike and the taxation and everything.
Yeah, thank you very much, Yinka Kenny. And let me start by saying the current situation we found ourselves, I will not attribute it 100% to this administration. I'll rather say I'll give kudos for certain steps they've taken in terms of the fuel. Before this administration came in, I'm sure you know our major source of income was this crude oil. And we're running less than 1 million barrels per day, which we should consider as a means of revenue for us. So you discover that before then, you've actually were running short in terms of revenue generation, but the administration came up with the policy of, closing the gap in the area of the shortfall when it comes to crude oil production, the area of theft, and as at the last report I read, I think we're hovering between 1.4 million to 1.6 million barrels per day, which they've given a commitment that they are to rise at least to 2 million barrel per day. So I would say that as one of the contributing factor increasing our revenue. But when you talked about this issue of fuel is a problem inherited one and also created by the current pressure we are faced with the war between Israel, Iran, and US. What do we say to this? Our previous leaders, which a lot of us will say we cannot exonerate this current administration, fail actually to look into the future.
Okay.
And it's a critical problem. As young as I am, I know there was a time in this nation that money wasn't our problem. It was how to spend it. And it's quite disappointing.
I don't agree with you.
It was.
Because
in this country, money wasn't our problem.
Let me cut you a bit there.
Okay.
While we were growing up, we well, maybe in our generation, Chester, maybe I don't know if, but you should know for me.
Austerity.
No, not even austerity. We've been hearing Ilule Oko Sowolode.
Even before we were born, if you ask our father, the same story has been.
The same thing.
The same story has been.
Okay.
And I remember vividly those particular time. We've had oil boom while we were young.
Yeah.
And if I'm not too far, during the Gulf War in this country, there was oil boom. But the problem we've had is the failure on the part of the people that were actually managing our economy at that point in time to plan for the future. And what are the basic things? I will give kudos to those our founding fathers in the 60s that had the creativity in the year 1976 to build the 4 refineries that we had there. That was actually given a way out. But you ask yourself, from that period till now, despite the oil boom that we've had, so much income on our part, what creativity have we had? And I remember listening to some of those leaders then, that now that we have so much of this money and we don't know how to spend it, I think the major area where they diverted those funds to, it's not to be, enjoying it individually and securing future of unborn generation, which is again the ethics of anything that you want to talk about. And that's why we are where we are today. You can imagine, as a nation that is oil producing, difficult for us to boast of having our own local refinery. I can't understand that fact. Why we have to rely on an individual who took the risk, the boldness to say, I'm going to do this. So you can imagine if we have a refinery functioning, what that will speak to is we will definitely have more supply in circulation as against the demand. That's an approach to it. The second aspect to it is that we have asked several questions from our leader. As we speak, I expect possibly somebody gives me that data. What is an average consumption of some of these petroleum products as we speak? What this speaks to is, when you don't have data, how do you plan? What becomes of you in the future to come? I will always make reference to my friend, the current Minister of State for Finance, who will always tell you that the bedrock of every decision making, he speaks to data. And that's why I feel that our problem when it comes to this fuel will not have an earlier solution if we don't have data. What is the average consumption like? And that's why I said maybe the data is out there. I've tried to search, but I have not gotten that actual file. Because what that will speak to is, if we are going to have an engagement with the man that is actually producing the fuel, we can look at approach of saying, domestically, can you produce this for us? If you are a woman preparing food, you have the resources. Your husband is the one planting the yam, at the backyard, and you are the woman preparing the food. And I'm sure you know what your consumption in-house will be before you start selling out. So we can have an exchange with the man producing and refining the product to say, domestically, can we have this certain? And a lot of people have actually queried and say that we know why. And I say why? He said because while that was happening in the period of subsidy, a lot of neighboring countries were enjoying the subsidy much more than us. And I said, how do you blame? Is it Sheson or you blame Yinka? What is the function of the security agency that are to man our border to make sure that we enjoy those things that are meant for us?
Okay, because we know we have limited time and we have a lot to talk about. I just want you to simply explain the correlation, like I said when I asked you that question, the correlation between the war going on and the hike in Nigeria, because people will tell you, Dangote produces petrol, so why should the war in Iran and America affect Nigerian petrol? Please quickly just explain that, because everybody is putting it on the table of today's government. Please explain.
Yeah, the fact remains that we are all, it's in the public domain that the crude oil that Dangote is using is actually being imported, because the government, the previous administration, from what we heard, has actually mortgaged part of this crude oil, and I think he's just having 30% to himself. and the rest is actually being imported into the country.
Yeah.
And that speaks to what is the current international market rate
Exactly.
of crude oil. That is the raw material that you have to actually process with. So as we speak, I think it's about $100 per barrel. Not too long. Even the budget of the government was less than $70 per barrel. It was 67, roving between 60 and $70 per barrel. But since the advent of the war, because we now have a lot of people, being constrained to sell into the market, the price keep going up. It would have been a blessing in disguise for us. Like I would tell everyone, if locally we have the capacity to sell to OPEC, and we have in excess that which we can refine locally for our people, and that is the missing gap, that is the missing link, if you ask me. We have not yet been able to even fulfill the OPEC quota, not to talk about having excess to refine locally. So you would have had an engagement to say, these are for my people, I'm offering this at a discounted rate, and possibly give the order where we man our border in such a way that we don't start selling those things. I keep telling individuals, when government even make effort to make life bearable for people out there, these middlemen go all out, all in the name of greed, to circumvent some of these ideas. So tomorrow when you talk about can we refine this product locally, a lot of people will tell you that when you refine locally, they are selling out. Even those of us here will not have anything to actually do. So you discover that all these agencies concerned, we have a lot of work to do. And everyone must stand up to the responsibility of what they are to do. And I will always say, when there are no consequences to things, it becomes quite difficult. People have the responsibility to man our borders. And it's quite porous that when things are produced for local people to benefit, it's actually being exchanged with neighboring country at the cost for them to gain. So what are we doing in such a way to make sure that our border are actually, being gated? And when you are talking about that, it speaks to security on its own. So when you're able to do that, you see us benefiting and enjoying. But with the way it is now, with Dangote that we all relied on, just this morning, I don't know, while I was coming, I saw a lot of filling stations closed up. I have not verified that product, but what I read last night, well, he has actually increased the price to about 1,254. I have not actually validated that, which speaks to volume. I've seen filling station while I was calling, the only one I saw selling while I was coming, selling at about 1,300. So what that speaks to is that once you have increase in the price of crude oil at the international market base, you don't expect anything short from demand refining it, except we are now going to talk about providing some of those things for him to do locally and avail to us, the citizen. Then how prepared is the security agency? It's quite worrisome when people venture into business for the benefit of the people, but there are individuals that are just out there to see how they can cash out. And it's because there are no consequences to it. And that's the fundamental problem. I keep asking myself while we're growing up, value is something that a lot of us treasure. It's not about you making money. It's about when you make the money, you are proud of that money because you are sure of the legit of the source of that money. But these days, people flaunt their affluence out there, and we don't even ask questions about it. So we must actually improve on our value system as a nation. And with that, in our own small individual places, we can do what is needful. And I keep telling people that care to listen, this country is blessed. The only thing we have is insincerity on the part of every individual, both the followers and the leaders. People that are leaders today were one-time followers. And we know of so much commitment on their part with that bright aspiration of what Nigeria is going to be. I was on the golfing course, and I was talking to some foreign guys that were playing golf together, and they keep saying, Nigerians, I feel for you guys. You guys are blessed. Because I keep asking them, what retain you in this country? Say, I've come here to stay because there are lots to enjoy if you are able to harness your resources the proper way it should be. And until we devoid ourselves of greed, a lot of people will speak of certain commitment. When they get to power, it's a different ball game.
Let's talk about taxes now. Now, what's the rationale? Because a layman would ask, what's the rationale behind there is fuel hike and now taxes are up also?
Fumi, let me correct that impression. Taxes
Fine.
are not up.
That's
It's the narration that we have in the public space, and if there is
Change that
anything,
narrative.
if there is anything, we must give kudos to. I think we need to give kudos to the presidential task force on fiscal policy and taxation. They did a very fantastic job, overhauling our tax reform policy. Don't forget that as we speak, certain set of people are exempted, and I follow through even on social media. Employers of labor, except if the organization before now insincere to you. Now it has caught up on them to do what is needful. But if before now they've actually been doing what is needful, a lot of people are exempted from tax, most especially those who are on the minimum wage. So those cleaners, those people that are struggling to make ends meet are actually out of the coffers of our government paying taxes. And for those that are above the income earner, we've had a reduction in the progressive taxation that we have. The concentration now are with the high and mighty. Possibly I will put Yinka Kenny in one of those classes.
Okay,
Those
I
people
like
that-
that.
when you talked about Yalo Day, you can imagine the revenue that comes from people like that.
the tributes.
And the thing that comes in line. But sincerely speaking, the taxation has taken a good toll in making sure that those that are below the cadre are exempted from paying taxes. The informal sector, we've had exemption of small and medium enterprises to the tune of 100 million exempted from taxes. You see, before now, even a lot of people are actually not paying the tax. And I understand the implication. A lot of people feel that they pay the taxes. Some of those social contracts expected of government to be carried out on their behalf are not being done. So you want to shortchange the government in taking care of some of those social contracts by providing road for yourself, providing water, providing health center. I say I don't want to give that in the hands of people, and that's why a lot of us have actually put this government on the toes to say, fine, people are ready to pay taxes.
Okay.
What is your own bit in making sure that you fulfill the other side of social contracts so that we can enjoy the benefits?
All right, thank you so much. I really wanted to ask you in all of this because we had not gone even to the squeeze on the economy. I don't know if you can just say something in 10 seconds about the effect of all of this on the economy, because we have to actually let you go.
Yeah.
Just in 10 seconds.
Yeah, the impact of this will be much more on the citizen unless we have a relief because of the pressure that we have out there. But in terms of taxes, don't let's follow the narration where people say they pay more taxes. In fact, it has been a relief. And we encourage people on their own. Let's do follow. I tell people it's an obligation of you. Do your part, and together we can put pressure on the government to fulfill their side. And when they are not doing it, we're during the time of election and quote that to them.
All right. Okay, honestly, we have somebody that really knows his honors when it comes to the issue of taxation and economy. And we have been discussing with a chartered accountant who is also a policy and public affairs analyst. He's also a chartered tax practitioner. It is Olusesan Samuel Okunade. Thank you for being our guest this morning.
It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Okay, I would like to end the show on the note where our guest stopped, and that's to say that you are expecting so much from the government. Yes, let's all play our part. This is a two-sided boat. Everyone should paddle his own side of the boat. Please do your own, then we can call government accountable. And for the Gen Zs, don't just go and be shouting on social media. Please try to read up. We've heard so much about the fuel and the reason for the fuel hike. It is not basically totally the fault of today's government.